Growing your business requires a team. You cannot do it all by yourself. It's just impossible because there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much you can do. And in today's episode, I am going to talk to you all about how to hire your first team member so that you can have the success you want to have, especially this year in 2025. So welcome back to another episode of the Kia Kelly podcast, where we talk about all things business, growing a business, work-life balance, and all the things. But first off, Happy New Year. What's today's date? January something. We are in the brand new year of 2025, and it feels, now I'll be honest, it feels the same. It doesn't feel like a new year, but we know that it's a new year. And anytime we go into a new year, there's always this like invigoration of hope and expectation and joy and all that. I do have that, but I also, I think I also have the realization of the goals that I have in mind for 2025. And these are not business goals. These are like personal goals. And some of the personal goals require team members, require restructuring, and just require me having less to do so that other people can do it and I can go after my goals. But that's not what today's episode is about. Today's episode is about how to hire your first team member. Okay, I'm looking at my notes. How to hire your first team member, because like I was saying in the intro, that if you're at this level, whatever this level means to you, if you're going to go to the next level, there's only so much you can do, right? Like one, you probably somebody has to consult with you and tell you what to do. And then there's probably things that you have to implement that you just cannot do by yourself. Like me, I'm a creative, I'm a visionary, I'm strategic, but I'm not the most organized person. I'm just not. And instead of me trying to make myself be the most organized person, I just recognize what I've got and what I don't got. But I also recognize that I had to get people around me who are organized, who are good at the things that I'm not good at, which required me to hire my first team member. And so in this episode, I want to talk to you. I actually have 9 things you need to do in order to hire your first team member. And hopefully that when you listen or watch this episode, that it'll be beneficial for you, that you will see the value in what could happen when you hire people. Now, I will first start this off by saying that it is scary when you think about employing somebody. As a small business owner, you are trying to pay your own living, right? And so the thought of putting somebody else's living on you can be very scary, right? Because you depend on you and your business to pay your bills. But when you hire someone, now you've got someone else who depends on you to help pay their bills, right? Where you've got to have work for them to do each day in order to pay them, right? That you've got to make enough money each day, week, month to pay your bills and to pay their bills. That can be very scary. I remember the feeling that I had when I was first thinking about hiring an assistant. I was panicking because I just didn't think that I was ready. I didn't think that financially I had it in me to be able to do. And it was a very scary journey. But I will say that hiring my first assistant changed everything. Completely changed my life forever, because once she got going, I realized all of what I just could not do without somebody else. And I did not even know it until somebody else came into the company. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about the 9 things that think you need to do in order to hire someone. Okay. So let's kind of talk through this together. So if you see me kind of looking at my computer screen, it's because I got my notes. I can't remember everything. And so instead of me editing it out, I'm going to read it. Okay. All right. So the first thing you want to do before you hire your first team member is you have to determine which position you are going to hire for. Okay. I know that sounds simple, but it is part of the thing. You've got to determine which position you need to hire for. So most people, I'm not talking about if you're hiring a contractor who is going to build a website for you, who's going to do a logo for you. I'm talking about somebody that's going to be with you day after day after day after day in your business, and they're helping you to run and operate your business. So you've got to determine what's the first position you need to hire for. Most people, the first position they should hire for is an assistant. Okay. Now that person could be a full-time assistant. That person could be a part-time assistant. Most times it is an assistant because you're already at max capacity, right? And if you're trying to grow your business from where it is to the next level, you're at max capacity. You've got to take some things off of you onto somebody else, right? So I think that if you are thinking about hiring somebody, to join your team, that the first person you should hire should be an assistant. I remember a couple years ago, I was talking to Mike Stelzner. He is the founder of Social Media Marketing World. And we were having a conversation, and he said the first person you need to hire, Kenya, is an assistant. And I was panicking, but he was right. And he just kind of coached me on what's the benefit of having an assistant, just all these different things. And it was so beneficial to just hear somebody who was unbiased give me some real guidance on what I should hire for and then how I should do it. Okay. Now, the second thing you need to do in order to hire the first person, which is what he told me to do, is he told me to create a list of things that you need that person to do. Okay. So if you're going to hire an assistant, you got to make a list of things you need that person to do. Now, what he had me do was he had me make a list of the things that I don't like to do. I thought that was the worst thing on the planet. I thought it was so mean. But he said, Kenya, if you're going to go from where you are to where you want to go, you got to take things off of your plate that you don't enjoy doing. Right? Now, some things you have to keep, right? So like some things you're just going to have to keep doing, right? But he said, there's a lot of things that you are currently doing that there is somebody else out there that loves doing it, right? I hate spreadsheets. I hate Excel. I hate processes. I hate all those things. And I hate responding to a ton of emails that I don't want to respond to. I respond to some because some come into my box, but sometimes when you get the massive amount of people, I'm like, I just can't focus, right? Like, for example, I'm hosting this big meetup in Houston, and we finally sent out an email to, well, like 400 people signed up for this like form, which was amazing. And we sent out an email and we said, hey, if you would like to volunteer, if you want to volunteer, respond to this email. Now, we had just moved from Kartra to ConvertKit for our email system. And so we hadn't made some updates. All of a sudden, I got like 20 emails from people that said they wanted to volunteer. And so I looked at my inbox and I was like, whoa. For me, it became overwhelming. I could hardly focus. And so I couldn't handle that. So I gave it to her. I said, hey, I need you to log into my email and I need you to talk to all these people because I can't do that, right? Because I know me, right? And so that's what she does. And so when he told me to make a list of the things that I don't like to do, I did that, right? And once I did that, I could see, okay, if that person does all that, here's what I can do, right? If that person does all that, here is what I can do. And I didn't feel as bad anymore because it's not like I was going to make somebody do something that they didn't want to do. It was that once I actually posted the job, I would post the job and a person would respond to the job if they wanted to do it. Okay. So second thing is make a list of the things that you want that person to do. Now, the third thing that you need to do before you, in order to hire your first team member is you have to make a detailed outline of how to do the job that you are hiring for. Let me explain that. So if we are brand new to running a business, having team members, then we are not used to not just delegating tasks, but we are not used to giving people an actual job description. Not just like a job description, but it's like you have got to like go, okay, for example, if I'm hiring an assistant and I want her to respond to my emails, I need to write out what is the process of what I like for her to do when regards to responding to emails. What can she say? What can she not say? What should she say? You know what I mean? Like, how should she respond? If someone is designing a website for me, then what I have to do is I have to list out like, here's how to do a website for me well. Yes, you're going to do what you do as a designer, but I have the specifics of what I am looking for. And when we don't outline what those are, then we have these unshared expectations, right? So if I have a social media manager and I want her to write captions, she's going to write captions how she thinks she should write captions. I need to outline what does it really look like to write captions for me, right? What does it really look like to respond to comments for me? And until I do that, I will always have expectations unmet because this person doesn't even know what my expectations are, what it looks like to do the job well. So for you, once you identified what you want to hire for, the responsibilities they're going to have, now you got to list out like, what does it look like for this person to do this particular job? Because once that person comes on, you've got to be able to share that with them. Okay. Number 4. The 4th thing you need to do to hire your first team member is that you have to create operating procedures for the company, the job you are hiring for. Okay. So not only how to do the job well, but what are the operating procedures, right? So for example, if I give my assistant a response, do this or whatever, one of the procedures is for her to take a look at her list of priorities, right? And determine, hey, what's the priority for this task? She also needs to come to me and say, hey, you just gave me this. I have these as my priorities. Like, does this one go above all these or do I do this one after that? That's part of the procedures of knowing what to do there. But also it is going into Notion, our project management software, and creating a task for herself and then assigning me and her to that task. So that way she will do her task, right? And when she completes it, she will let me know that it is completed. What does that do? That keeps our process in order. That keeps her from having to remember everything or me from having to remind her of everything because it's all placed on the inside of our project management type of software. Okay. So same thing goes for, like, let's just say an editor for videos for us. Our responsibility is to go, okay, here's what our fonts are. Here's this, like all of what this looks like. And then when you upload these videos to YouTube, you have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Otherwise, when that person edits the video, uploads it to YouTube, it's going to look how they think it should look and whatever happening on YouTube according to what they think versus us giving them an actual procedure for the company. Okay. Number 5, the 5th thing you need to do to hire your first team member is that you have to create a very detailed job description. Okay. You have to create a very detailed job description, not only for your sake, but more importantly for the person you're hiring. Because when that person sees a job posting, wherever it's posted, they need to know exactly what they're getting themselves into. Okay. They need to know exactly what they will be getting themselves into, what they will be responsible for, what they're applying to, what the company does, how much they're going to get paid. They need to know as much as possible about that job before they respond to it. Okay. Because first of all, the last thing you want to do is be talking to 1 million people about the wrong job because you weren't detailed enough about what they should be expecting from this particular job. Okay. And so the second thing is so that when people see the job posting, that they don't just apply to a job just to apply to it, but they know, no, this is what it looks like. You're going to be responsible for this, and this. And you have to have these qualifications. You have to have all this experience. What that's going to do is going to narrow down the candidates that apply. It's going to narrow down the amount of people you have to respond to. Okay. And it's going to get you the most qualified candidates to have a conversation with. Okay. A lot of times I think that we write these really short job descriptions because we're, sometimes lazy about it, but that's not actually beneficial for you because now you're going to have all these random people who aren't qualified. And then it's not good for those that want to apply for the job when they don't really know if this is all what they're supposed to be doing. Or once they get into the interview process or they get hired and they find out you want them to do way more than what the job entailed, That person's going to be overwhelmed. They're probably going to quit or whatever because it's just too much for them. Okay. All right. Now let's get to number 6. The 6th thing you need to do to hire your first team member is that you got to create a list of questions for the interviewee. Okay. So you're going to post that job, but now you got to know what questions do you have for that interviewee. Okay. So sometimes when you post the job, like for example, I use a website called upwork.com where we can post a job, we can post different questions and all that. And what happens is that when people apply to the job, what happens is that it also says answer these questions when you reply. Okay. If people don't reply to the questions, then we know they're not really reading the job description. That's going to go ahead and X them out. Okay. If people actually read the questions and they respond to them, now we know a lot more about this candidate and not just what's in their profile. Right. So then we're able to narrow it down even the more, right? We get an opportunity to experience them, to share, for them to share more of their experience and more detail that may not be listed in their resume or what have you, because resumes are short. They don't tell the full story, but when someone actually responds to questions you've listed, man, you learn a whole lot about a person, okay? But in addition to that, on the job board, once you have the interview you're gonna have with them, you wanna have a list of questions to ask them for that interview, okay? You don't wanna just be there and just expecting them to lead the interview. You want to have more questions to ask that person, okay? Now, when I look at the questions to ask a person, it is, you want to think about how do they think? How do they process? How do they behave? You know, what is it that they didn't say on their resume? Or what did they say on their resume that you want more information on? You want to know how they apply things to your particular job or what they do with real world application. You want to try to get as much from a candidate as possible. And so sometimes in interviews, you might try to trip up a candidate on purpose. I don't mean that in a negative way, but you might say, if you were in this and this scenario, how would you handle this, this, and this? And you're just trying to see what would they say. And it may not necessarily have anything to do with the actual job, but you might say, you're in the break room and you hear a coworker talking about this, this, and this. And you know that we just had a meeting about this, this, and this. How will you handle what the coworkers are saying, what they're doing versus what happened in the meeting? You just want to know who you are interviewing, who you're dealing. You just want to know as much as you can know about that person. And the more questions you have for the interviewee, the better. Okay. Number 7, the 7th thing you need to do to hire your first team member is that determine what you must have in the candidate. Determine what they must have. Do they have to have a degree or do they have to have a lot of experience? Do they have to know how to use this particular software? Right. So like we were hiring for another social media manager and assistant, and we're really looking for someone who was very good in operations and social media. Right. And so we had to determine, do we care more about this person is like super good at social media or better with operations? And we cared way more about the operations side of things because we can teach them social media. So then we were like, okay, what do we care about? We want them to be able to create a standard operating procedures. We wanted them to be able to create diagrams. We wanted them to be analytical and methodical, right? And so when we listed the job, right, and when we were interviewing them, we made sure that we were trying to find out, do they have experience doing this, 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 and this? And if they said yes, we're like, well, let us see. Right? Because a lot of people we hire are overseas and we're like, you've got experience creating standard operating procedures. Let us see an example, right? Or I'll hire you for 2 hours because we're doing outsourcing. I want to give you this video, this document, turn it into a procedure. Let's see. And what all that does is it helps us to see, does this candidate have what it is that we are looking for, right? And the only way to know that is we have to know what we're looking for in detail and then give them things that they can do so they can show us. All right. Number 8. Okay. And then the last one. Number 8 is, what are your non-negotiables? Determine what are your non-negotiables, because I guarantee you have them. You have things, but you are like, this is no. If this is the case, no. If this is the case, yes. You have to determine what are your non-negotiables. Like this, they must have this or it's over, right? You have to know what that is, because when you post a job, you're going to receive a lot of inquiries from people looking for a job that you're offering. You've got to know what is a hard yes, a hard no. You just have to know. Like, we had a candidate that we hired for social media, and a non-negotiable was that the person would work during USA hours, but also they had experience working in USA hours. And lastly, that we liked the person. Right? That we had to like them. And so the girl that we hired, she said she had the experience working USA hours and that she was used to working USA hours. And when we interviewed her, we liked her. And so then I think it was like day 1 or day 2, we started to realize this person was not used to working USA hours. They were tired. And the more we talked to them, we didn't really like them. And we were like, but like, we tried to get it all in the interview, but we couldn't. Now, granted, it was contract, so we didn't have to keep that person, but we learned the hard way that we needed to ask way more questions, right? That we needed to spend way more time talking to this person to see if we really liked them, right? To where when we got our final person, I was asking questions that I'm sure they were like, whoa, but I had to. Otherwise, I would hire someone again and again and again and again, and it'd just be a nightmare, right? And so we ended up liking that person. They were used to working our hours and all the things, and then we brought them onto our team. But we made the mistakes of like not asking enough or not digging enough. And the more you dig, the more you're going to find. The final thing you need to do to hire your first team member is that you got to create a detailed hiring, onboarding, and training plan. You just got to. Even when you hire contractors, you have to have a detailed plan of how you're hiring them when you bring them on board, how you onboard them, how you train them, and then the process that they go through to learn the company. Because the worst thing you can do is they got experience, go and do the job. That's not how this works. They may have experience with being an assistant, but they don't know how to assist you. They don't know you. They don't know how you think. They don't know your company, your products, your services, your processes. They don't know any of that stuff. And we made so many mistakes of not having a real process of all that with people that we lost some of the greatest people because our stuff just wasn't together, right? But we've had some of the greatest people come along because we've got so many of those things together. But it's not like it all happened overnight, okay? So if this is your first time hiring, you're going to make mistakes, right? But you got to give yourself room to make those mistakes. And you got to talk to people so other people can help you skip some of those mistakes that you don't necessarily have to make if you would actually talk to people and get some stuff and put in place, okay? So if you got questions about this, I know this is a lot of information. If you got questions about this, I want you to come ask me here on YouTube. Whatever you want to ask. I love Upwork.com. I encourage you to check out Upwork.com if you want to. But I really love them. My whole team has come from Upwork. It's been such a blessing for me and my company. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel. We have new videos that come out twice a week. If you enjoyed the podcast, please write a review. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.